Hello and welcome to another episode of Artful Loving. In today's episode, we are going to talk about having the sexy conversations, talking about our sex, our desire, our interests, our fears, all of those things. So stick with us. I'm Nick Tovey, relationships and intimacy counselor and coach, and if you're new to the channel, please go ahead, subscribe. If you want to learn a little bit more about me and my work, go and check out my website, nicktovey.com, and if there's anything there you want to talk about, anything you're interested in engaging with me, either on a one-on-one or as a couple, then please get in touch. And if you want to join this conversation a little deeper, become part of community, then come over and join us on Patreon for patron-only content and experiences. So why is it so challenging for a lot of us to have conversations around sex, sexuality, desires, fantasies, interests, and of course boundaries, what we don't like, what's not okay for us? It's such a big issue for a lot of people to even contemplate opening a conversation around this. And that, of course, can lead people towards having experiences that they really just don't want to have, and that they're having experiences, sexual encounters, sexual experiences that are either just unsatisfying or potentially abusive and traumatizing. So it's really, really important that all of us, regardless of our gender, our sexual orientation, our sexual identity, no matter how many partners we have or we've had, whether or not we're in a relationship or we're just having casual encounters from time to time, it's super, super important that we are able to have some of these potentially awkward, clunky, and potentially uncomfortable conversations. So why is it such a challenge for us? I think a lot of us have a lot of shame around our sexual desires, our sexual intentions, our feelings around pleasure and intimacy, and let's face it, it's one of the, if not the most vulnerable experience we can have as a human being, to have a sexual encounter with another human being, or potentially many other human beings. It's extremely vulnerable. And so a lot of us have a lot of hang-ups around and fears around being shamed, being belittled, being laughed at, being cast out of the community for our sexual desires, fantasies, wants, and dislikes. So this becomes a bit of a problem and a barrier to having some of these really, really important conversations. Additionally to that, what I think is very apparent in our world today is all sorts of dogmatic, historical, unhealthy messages around sex and sexuality. Whether it's come from religion, and I think definitely religion has a lot of responsibility to hold on this level of shame and dirtiness. Let's face it, particularly from a Christian mindset, and of course other mainstream religions also have done a pretty bad rap when it comes to sex and sexuality. There's this sinful aspect of it that it should only be done, sex should only be done once we're married. All of these old, dogmatic, and let's face it, outdated messages and ideals that just don't work for most people today. But we're subjected to these messages, and we have been subjected to these messages regardless of how religious and traditional our upbringing was, we live in a world that has these values and these all sorts of unpleasant, unhealthy, and definitely unhelpful messages around sex, sexuality, and sexual expression. So it's really hard to escape all of that conditioning. It's like layers that have been wrapped around us as a human being, preventing any level of freedom to be able to comfortably and openly have these sorts of conversations. And of course, additionally to that, we may have had experiences when we were younger, possibly children, of being shamed for our sexuality, for our sexual exploration, of having our genitalia laughed at or called dirty or shunned and shamed, and we're not allowed to touch it, we're not allowed to have it open in public, we're not allowed to there's so many ways in which we can have our free, comfortable expression and relationship with our sex, with our sexuality, with our body, with our genitalia, and of course with our sexual desire and sexuality. So many ways in which we've had that squashed, shamed, shoved down into, a tiny little package somewhere and made wrong. So it's really difficult to break free from some of these cages that have been put around our sexuality and our sexual expression from a very young age often. So it's really important that we understand this. We understand our own particular stuff around sexuality and sexual expression before and as we start to have communication and conversations around our sexual freedom, our sexual expression, our sexual life, what we like, what we don't like, what we fantasize about, what scares us, what intrigues us, what we want to try, all of these different aspects of sexuality, which are really, really important to talk about and really, really healthy and normal. So, like I said, it's important before we even have those conversations to start to turn the gaze inwards and ask ourselves a few difficult questions. What have been the messages that I've received about my sexuality, about my body, about my sexual expression? How have I taken on messages from the outside world, from my parents, from my religion, from my school experiences, from any of my earlier sexual experiences? Where have I been laughed at, shunned, shamed? Where have I had an experience where the outside world or somebody in the outside world has made me internalize shame around my sexuality and my body? And to look at that, and of course it's sometimes really important to get some support with that, to see a therapist, a counsellor, a coach, somebody you feel comfortable to explore some of these internal traps that have been created around your freedom, your free expression of your sexuality, of your humanness. And then of course I think one of the most important factors we need to bring into these conversations that we want to have and that we need to have is a sense of humility and a sense of compassion and a sense of discovery. It's from a Buddhist perspective, they call it the childlike mind. We walk into an experience, a conversation, as a child wanting to learn and discover and explore something from this perspective of awe and exploration. It's like, I don't know anything about this, and this is the childlike mind. The childlike mind doesn't know, but he wants to discover, or she wants to discover. it's such a beautiful perspective to have to so many different areas of life. And I think one of the traps that we can easily fall into, particularly around sex and sexuality, is believing that we should know all about it, is believing that we should have all of our shit together as we enter into sexual relationships with other people. And this, of course, is another barrier to really being open about discovering what we want, what we like, what we don't like, and of course, what somebody else likes and doesn't like, and wants and fantasizes about. Yeah, it's important to have to be able to let go of and arrest all of the things we think we know. There's a lot of, particularly, and I'm genderizing a little bit here, and I know there's definitely, I'm speaking as a man from a man's perspective, and of course there are definitely unhealthy messages that women get, but I think, speaking as a man, there's a very unhealthy, when it comes to sexuality, a very unhealthy and very dogmatic message that often gets received by a lot of men when they're younger, is that, we need to be sexually masterful. We need to have all of our shit together. We need to know what we're doing. We need to be able to perform. We need to have all of it sorted out. And if we're not, we're somehow less of a man. And so we need to, we need to let go of some of that and recognize that we don't have all of our shit together. We don't know all about it. How can we? Every human being is unique, and every body is unique, and every body is unique from moment to moment, from experience to experience. So of course, when we're entering into a sexual experience with somebody else, whether we've been with them for a night or a decade, we need to be open to discovering this person afresh in that moment and letting go of what we think we know about them. Yeah, this is a really, really important factor in being able to have open and honest and free conversations around sex and sexual exploration. What else I think gets in our way is this idea that and the fear that if I ask a certain question of this person about their sex or sexuality, they're going to reject me, they're going to laugh at me, they're going to think that I'm stupid or I don't know what I'm doing. And of course, if that happens, you probably don't want to be in bed with this person. It's probably a good idea to get the hell out and choose somebody else to be having a sexual experience with. Yeah, if that is the way that person's going to behave when you have a vulnerable question and an honest, want to open into an honest conversation, then they're not the right person for you. Simple as that. Yeah. What we want to be engaging in is a real beautiful open exploration. And it's fun, and seeing it as a fun experiment, a place where we can, as mutual adult human beings, enter into this opportunity to explore and discover. It really is, like I was saying, I come back to the childlike mind. If you feel into what the childlike mind feels like, it's adventurous. It's exploratory. There's an air of wonder over how I'm moving into this, and of course, there's a vulnerability in it also because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm entering into a place of the unknown. That is what makes sex exciting. Is having experiences of novelty, of newness. This is why sex in a new relationship is so fucking beautiful, because we're discovering how these two bodies meet and how they work together. And of course, that's why, unfortunately, sometimes sex becomes a little bit meh and a little bit boring once we feel like we know each other and we know each other's bodies so intricately, and that is doesn't always have to be the case. So that is going to be an episode for another time. Let's put a little sticky label on that, and I want to talk about how to recreate that sense of newness and novelty in another episode. So watch the space. I talked in a few episodes back around boundaries and consent. In order to establish boundaries and consent, what do we need to do? We need to communicate. We need to be able to have a conversation around what's okay, what's not okay, what do you like, what don't you like, what are you okay with in this encounter, and not just assuming that what was okay last time is going to be okay today. Yeah, we need to establish consent, and we need to be able to talk about what's okay and what's not okay. And so, of course, we need communication. Communication is essential for creating a good, consensual, fun and free experience of sexual play and sexual expression. Otherwise, we risk hurting people, we risk getting hurt, we risk abuse, we risk rape. This is just plain and simple fact. This is what gets people into trouble when they may not have even had the intention to create an abusive situation. Consent wasn't established, the boundaries are unclear, and all of a sudden we've done something that the other person wasn't okay with, or they've done something to me, and all of a sudden my body is in fight or flight or freeze. My nervous system is going, get the fuck off of me, I'm in danger. And so what do we do with that? Yeah, again, that's probably another episode's talking about trauma and sexual trauma. So just here today, what I'm really highlighting is the importance of having these conversations. It's okay to ask a question. It's okay to, if you're not sure that what you're doing is okay for this person, or what you want to do is okay for this person, ask them. How do we get from not knowing to knowing? We have to bridge that gap with a question, with a conversation. Yeah, it's important to be able to, like I said, arrest our knowingness, or the things that we think we know, enter into a place of humility, recognizing that I don't know everything about this person, or about sex, or about myself even, and then enter into that place of wonder, that childlike mind of exploration, experimentation, discovery, and of course novelty. Bloody beautiful experiences to have. And of course, make it fun. Make it a fun experience. Make it an experience where we get to play a little bit. What do you like? Just go in little tiny footsteps towards something that feels beautiful, and where we can get to explore and experience maybe some areas of our sexuality that we haven't explored before. Yeah, these are beautiful opportunities to discover something new, and something new about ourselves that maybe we didn't know, and of course discover something about the person you're with. Beautiful, beautiful opportunities. So I'll leave it there. Hopefully this has really been useful for you. If there's any questions you have about this, if this is an area of your relationship or of your life that you struggle with in having these conversations, maybe it's a good idea for you to do some work with this, yeah, to seek some support. And of course, I'm here. If you want to talk to me about it, come and talk to me. Send me an email. Maybe put a comment down below. If you want to keep it anonymous, then email me. Give me your comments, your feedback. If this is useful to you, please click the like button. Share it with a friend that you think it's going to be useful to, your partner, your lover, your mother, your father, whoever you feel it's going to be useful to, which of course is bloody everybody, yeah? This is important stuff. And of course, please subscribe. Really appreciate the support that you can give me so I can keep bringing this content to you and to the world. So thank you, much love, take care, see you in the next video.